Hello there. Give me one moment while I adjust my music. Where is it? There. That's good. Okay. So, what are we doing today? We're gonna do some soldering and we're gonna do some repairing. What are we gonna repair? We're gonna repair this. This is a MaMo. It's a concept prototype bot that I made. And as you see, things are loose on it and wires are loose. The reason for that is, well, I can't really, actually, yes, I can show. Here's another one that is actually working. And as you see, it's supposed to be on there. Now these bots, they're controlled through an online interface. And accidents will happen. That's just the way it is. People are gonna accidentally run into things. But then you have those who do it deliberately, and those can fuck right off. Either way. As you can see by the very construction of this ESP here is fairly exposed. And since these things tend to go forward, where the camera is, they tend to hit right on the board like that. And that's why this one is like this. Um, it took a beating, let's just say that. Um, so we're gonna repair it. Just move my crap. All my crap is moving. Perfect. So, also yes, they run on batteries that are removable. And I charge them in this, and that display I had myself. It's currently empty, but yeah, I use that to charge them. Either way, this is not the first time this has been broken like this. This is like the fourth or fifth time, and I'm growing a bit tired of actually repairing it. I want it to be robust and not break after all. So I designed this. I call it the social distancing bar because, well, given the current times we are in, I thought it would be appropriate to name it that. But yeah, this thing will go on like so, and it will act as a barrier to protect the ESP. And so far, I have another one of these. But so far, the other one that has also gotten one of these has not broken yet. So I think this will be the last time I repair this thing, hopefully. Hence the stream. Let's get the wheels off so we can get some more access. Stump all that out. This capacitor, not that, but this capacitor is supposed to be on that red board there, right beside that one. Right on those two empty pads right there. I'm not sure I need it. Hopefully I don't. I think it's just a power rail cap. Uh, we shall see. I have another identical cap here, and I'm debating whether to put that on. But I kind of just want to try without it, so I see if it's if it's needed. Because if I can remove those caps, I could actually make this an even smaller ship sandwich. But yes, let's get started. Here's our soldering iron with the crappiest tip you have ever seen. Come on. Focus. Focus. Yeah, see that tip? That's the most awful tip. And I'm only pointing that out because people who solder, they tend to blame their tips. Pun not intended. But I'm going to show you, you don't need a good tip to get some good soldering done. All you need is some technique, practice, maybe patience. Anyway, let's start. I'm going to start by just tinning this so that we can get it as clean as possible, even though it will not be clean at all. Let's get something to put under here. While we do that, this is just to make the tip as good as possible before we start using it. Actually, there's so much crud on there because apparently I left the soldering iron on. So let's get some paper. Put that down. Let's fold that a few hundred times, like so. And then, there we go. That will have left a bunch of crap on there. But now it's really important that you tin it. Tin it and tin it quickly. Because what you just exposed might be the alloys, but it might also be the actual tip material itself. And if it's the tip material itself, that's going to erode away quite quickly. Speaking of, you can use tips that don't have that protective coating, as long as you keep them tinned. As long as you keep it tinned, there won't be any major corrosion. There will still be some, because, I don't know, but you can use tips very long time after they've lost their protective coating. Let's get this thing out of there. And let's start working on this. So, first of all, there's a motor wire here that needs to be reconnected. And I need to, where is it? Where's the stripping thing? Where is it? Did I really lost that one? That's an essential tool for me. I need that tool. Oh, I can't survive without that tool, but it's very, very handy. And it removes a lot of mistakes. Where's the wire cutter thingy? God damn it. The things I get for not preparing. Like, is it really not anywhere here? At all? Hello? Huh. Oh, I'm blind. Oh no. It's literally on screen. It's literally on screen. It's literally there. Oh well. So, I'm blind. Yeah, let's strip that back just a tiny bit so we can get that back on. Let's tin it. Oh, shaky hands, perfect. Hands. Please cooperate and do not shake. I know that's a tall order, hands, but please. Okay, that one's tinned. Let's put that against there. Put my hands stable so I don't vibrate too much, I say, and then I vibrate a lot. Crap. I think I'm gonna have to make this less viewable for you so I can actually do this. Put it up on an angle so I can actually rest my hand properly. And let's bend that so that it's uh, maybe from this direction. Let's oh yeah, backward soldering. Let's go. Hands, finger, please stop shaking. It's because I'm streaming a bit. Fucking hell. Hand. Swear. Okay, let's just adjust everything so that I can actually put that on there. Put that in there. I have no idea what I'm doing. Did I get it? Nope, I did not get it. That's how you test how you got a good joint, by the way. If you can tug and pull on it, especially if you can, like, if you have soldered one end and you want to strip the other, if you can strip it with only the other solder joint holding it in place, it's a very good joint. But yeah, let's see if I can get some visual. Nope. Okay, that may be on there. Let's check. Yep, that's on there. So now what I need to do is reconnect two other wires, which are these two positive wires right here. There and there. Those two. I'm going to start with the shortest one, which is this one. I think I'm actually going to have to remove it and replace it with a better new one. So I remove that one. Something on the floor. Anyway. Wire, yes. I have some generic blue wire here that I use for practically everything and anything. Let's just a wire. Let's put that there. Let's shuttle all this together. What do we need? About that length. So we need about that length. However, I'm gonna do it a little bit longer at the beginning because slack is always good to have. It's always you can always cut off more, but you can't add more back without having horrible joints and weird cables. Yeah, stripping a cable this tiny is an issue. What I tend to do is just do it, just chomp, 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 and rotate the thing, and then use your teeth. Like so. There you go. You see that? There you go. And the other end where I bit, it actually, come on, focus, you F. Yeah, that actually damaged the insulation there. It's actually gone through to the cable. So that's also why we made it a bit longer. Slack is good to have. Anyway, let's tin that. There we go. Doing the good old regular free finger or holding three things at once. Shaking. There we go. One end. Let's put that on. Like so, I guess. What the heck happened to my music? Yeah, what the... Oh. Let's play that. Okay, so I may have to replace this cable, this other red one as well. That's right here. But for now, let's focus on... Actually, should I attach this again so it's like stuck down, actually? Maybe that's a good idea. Yeah, I'm gonna replace this too. Yeah, 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 it's... Ow, 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 my eyes, ow, ow, ow. Note to self and everyone out there. Don't put a soldering iron onto... Where is it? Yeah. Don't put a soldering iron onto hardened super glue. Because because then that will happen to you. Not fun. But yes, we're gonna solder that on. We're gonna glue that on. Maybe now, maybe later. I don't know yet, to be honest. For now, I'm gonna just hold it to see if all of this is enough. Do we have enough cable? Yeah, I think so. It'll be good. Just cleaning up that area. The reason why there was wait, the reason why there was super glue right there. There's a little piece of insulated material here that I glued on because the cable was a bad cable, and it somehow shorted through to either the ground or power plane that's basically flood filled on the board, and that made the thing short, to be short about it. But yes. Oh yes, that's there. I put on that one. Well, speaking of, I have to get the junk off that terminal. That junk is now on here. So let's do that. And let's retin it. The junk is still on there. So I'm just gonna flood it out with solder. Then I'm gonna do the junk like that. Get rid of all the extra. And then, yes, and then something. Let's clean that, clean that. I may need to clean that. Probably not. Anyway, let's cut one more piece of cable. Again, I don't really need it to be that long. So, just gonna do that. Oh, come on. There we go. Let's do this thing again. That No, that did work. Wow. Hmm. Hmm. Oh well. Let's tin that. Come on. There we go. Warm. Ow. Let's get that on there. There we go. Our new two power cables that we need to attach. Oh no! The other power cable detached. Fuck. Well, I guess I'm replacing all of them then. That also means I can do that. And have actual access here. Let's throw that away. And let's cut another piece of cable. One thing you can also do is strip the cable while it's still on the reel. That way you don't have to bite it. Oh, wrong one. There we go. And then the regular like that. And there you go. But it does curl the cable with it though. But I don't know if that changes the crystalline structure or anything like that. Might make it weaker. I do not know. But yes, let's. Guess we could cut it off now. Oh no. Oh well. Okay. Let's cut a length of that. Make sure there's slack. Let's solder that on. Wait a minute. Where's the power? Are the batteries even hooked up to this board? I need a way to take the batteries out though. In the paper jungle. In the paper jungle. Paper is very useful. Let's stick that in. Let's stick that in and let's see if it turns on. It does! Wow. That means the batteries are hooked up. God damn it. God damn it. Gosh darn it. How do I get that out? Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's the only problem with these battery holders. They're made for unprotected cells, but these are protected. And they have to be because of how the circuitry works. So it's a bit of a fiddly. But I don't mind. But yes, let's hook up these free wires now that we soldered on. And to do that, let's strip them. As I said before, if you can strip it from with just the joint holding it, then you have a good joint. There we go. Those three are stripped. I'm gonna put this back in place. How was that on there before? I kind of want this to be centered. Oh yeah. Oh yes. Yes. The ground here, this is a ground, needs to be hooked up to the back side of this floating board here. So I think that will be the first one I put on. Oh wait, that's positive. This one. This one. That one needs to go up and basically under, then up, something like so. So that it can reach there. So let's, I stripped that a bit too much for my own comfort, so let's chop off a bit. Let's see if we can bend this without breaking the solder joints. There we go, that's ish close. Let's tin. Spin this a bit so we can get it in place. Too much. Ow. There we go, I think that's close enough. That might be a weak connection. Let's test it. Actually, now when it's like this, I can get it a better. There we go. And that will fold down like so. And let's make sure that it's not gonna be in the way. Let's take that cable and push it a bit to the side. So it goes on the other side of that capacitor. Okay, let's glue. Let's put a drop right there. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. Cable, yes. I will use you to put that over there. Okay. So that's just spot glued in now. Um, and also, I'm covering the lens of the camera because super glue, or cyanoacrylate, or whatever you want to call it, has a tendency to fog up plastics and glass. That's why I'm having my finger right on top of the lens. Think I can let go? I don't know. I mean, as long as the distancing bar fits, I'm happy. It does. I'm happy. Well, I am gonna have to clean up the brim on this sooner or later, so might as well do it now. My printer has been acting weird. It's I think it's something to do with the bed leveling, but that pretty much forced me to it forces me to have a overly large brim on basically every print I do, which is a bit annoying, but I survive. Yeah, that's perfect. So this 3D printed thing is just here to protect the board from annihilating itself, let's say, or from users annihilating it, I guess. Yes, we're on the home stretch now. We only have 2 cables left, and then we can actually test it. I'm gonna cut off there because I stripped too much. And the same here. I like to keep, because this is such a small thing, such a small ship sandwich. Let's see, focus. Focus. FUF, please. No? No? Okay, there you go. As you see, it's quite compact in there. Yes, let's hook up the motor supply, which is just a battery supply. Let's get the crud out of that hole. There's leftovers of a wire in there. So I'm gonna have to take that out, I think. Or maybe not. I do not know. Hmm. Yeah, I'll just. Oh yeah. Speaking of, I forgot. Let's tin this. There we go. All right, let's tin this. Let's do that. And use this to get that higher up so I can actually see what I'm doing. There we go. That's what I wanted. Now this can be bent around. And I have to actually, I'm gonna have to bend this a bit more precise. Like so. Yeah, hey, that's perfect. All I have to do now is, there we go. That's actually on there, so I don't even need to hold it, I think. I just need to put the soldering iron on. Ah, crap. Yeah, I need to hold it now. Come on. I don't trust that connection at all. I'm gonna redo that. Come on. Okay, yeah, this is what happens to a bad tip. It tends to, as you use it, it tends to. Oh, come on. Focus. No, whatever. Okay. So, what tends to happen is that the crud tends to build up. And the best way I've found to get that off is to retin. Retin, retin, retin. And it still looks like crap, so let's do this thing again. Other time this time. Other side this time. And tin, 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 tin. Quick. Let's try this again. Okay, I got it loose. Let's adjust it again. There we go. Now I can get in here. Pick that up. Nope, that's not on there. Oh, it's on there. There we go. So there we go. I have a kind of slack cable there, but I don't mind, to be honest. I just want this thing working. Let's fold that up. Oh, that's actually quite tight. So let's use this to bend it. So I get that kind of shape. Perfect. Oh, oh yes, I did tin it. Wow. I don't think that's on there. Oh, it is. Just old crap in there. There's a little bit of crap in there that's dangerously close to the negative terminals. I'm gonna go in there with a screwdriver and bend it out. Yeah, there we go. That's much better. So it's repaired, supposedly. Let's see if it's actually repaired. If it actually works. It might be that the motor driver doesn't work at all. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just gonna bend these cables in place so I can get access to the battery. Same for this side. Make sure they're also attached. Yep. The one I repaired looks like crap, but it's on there, so it's because there's other crud in the joint from the other cable. Yes, I think it's a bit off center. It's not entirely straight, but this is MaMo 1. I have another one, MaMo 2. And the MaMo 1 has been the one that's been repaired the most. So yeah, let's get stuff back on here. I oiled the gearboxes before, so I don't need to do any of that. Oh, come on. Oh, get in there. Fuck. Come on. Really? Okay, line it up perfectly. There we go. And that's a MaMo. Should probably. I might glue that cable later so that it doesn't flop around too much. Actually, let's do it now. Just plop. Yeah, there you go. Let's clean this nozzle up. Oh no, yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. That's stuck now. And all I should really need to do now is glue on this social distancing bar, and I'm done. Oh, yes. Let's let's actually make sure that it works. How about that? Let me get to the thingy. Oh wait. Okay, MaMo 2 is online. Is Boxo online? No, Boxo is dead. Let me restart Boxo. But yes, that's not what we're interested in. We're interested in this thing that we just repaired. So let me add a desktop capture. Eh. Oh. Eh. Eh. There we go. So, also, I can show you. Here's MaMo 2. It's alive. It works. It's practically the exact same like this one. So, that's fun. And that's Boxo. Oop, plonk. Yes, let's check this one that we just prepared. Or as we say, here's one I made earlier. Yes, let's turn it on. Oh, it blinks. Thank God. Oh yes, let's actually no. I'll wait with gluing this on until I actually know it's working. Should connect soon. Or not? Uh-oh. Is this bad? Oh, wait. Wait, what? Ah, okay, it just took a while. Oh, yes, this MaMo. MaMo 1 runs another version of the software. Uh, it checks more IP addresses. Anyway, let's see if it actually works. Well, camera seems to be working at least. Connection is shoddy because it's not connected to my router here. It's connected to the one that's downstairs. Yes, let's try turning on the light. Yes, that works. Turn it off. Yes. Connection is really bad. Wow. Let's try to go forward. Yes. Backwards. Yes. Yeah, it's the connection. But that tells me the motor driver is still working, even though it's missing this capacitor. So, yeah, connection is really bad. It's hello. Yeah, it's practically dead. Uh, Come on. Do I have a flathead? Yeah, there we go. There we go. Battery's out. Safe to do work without anyone messing with the controls and fucking everything up. Been there, done that. Oh yeah, let's get rid of that. And yes, there we go. So let's one drop in there, one drop in there. Here we go. And this one is now ready to rumble. So, tell you what, I will put some batteries in this, take it downstairs, and see if the connection is good. And if so, I'll call this a success. So, actually, let's bring in that again. Uh, and this, again, MaMo 1, that's this one. MaMo 2 is already downstairs. Oh, what? Bruh. Okay, there we go. What the heck is... Maybe it's because I'm streaming. Oh well. Let me unplug the soldering iron, because otherwise I'll just forget about it. And yeah. I will stick those two in, and then I will find... Un momento. Okay, I'm back. Switch to this one. These are what I usually use to get the batteries in and out. It's just it's a normal component bag that I cut up, and I just slide it in under like that, so just like I did with the paper earlier. Stick it down like so. Same for this one. Turn it on, and I'll see you downstairs. Oh, it's already up. Really? But it's not live, which means controls are broke. Oh, there you go. There we go. Can you see this? Yes, you can. In fact, let me do something like so. Get my keyboard. So, there we go. Oh no, the lens is fogged. Oh no. I wonder if that's because the super glue. Anyway, as you see, the MaMo has been repaired. And we can drive around and do things. Let's say hi to. Oh yes, hi cat. Wait, where are you? Hi, cat. Hi cat. I'm a robot cat. Let's say hi to my dad, I guess. Oh, oh. And that's why the social distancing bar is needed. And again, that's why it's needed. Let's see if he's in there. He's not. Let's hide under the bed. And wait. Wahaha. Nah. Yeah, before I turn off the stream, I am gonna check if I can get that fogginess off that lens. What? Oh. I still need to do some major tweaking of the steering while you're moving, but that's why I call the MaMos prototypes, because they are. Is that a cat? That's a cat. Another cat. Hi, cat. Hi, cat. Yes. I will take some paper and I will see if I can clear up that lens. Be right back. Oh, god damn it. Well, I don't know why. Oh, come on. This one is a lot clearer. Just to compare. Yeah, there's some kind of fogging on that lens. but you can still see. Hmm. That capacitor might have been needed after all. I don't know. It's drifting to the right. But yes, here we go. Prepared MaMo. Ready for business. Oh, turned a bit too much there. And again too much. Ooh. Again, social distancing bar, it's practically needed. Before, if I used to hit something like a pillar, like that thing, the board would just reboot. Let's stay under here. And let's invite MaMo too as well. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Yeah, there is MaMo 1, a scene from MaMo 2. That's the bot we just prepared. And it's alive and running. Come on. Ah, whatever. I see cat eyes. At least I think. Oh yeah, it is. Oh, that's... yeah. Oh! Ja, vänta, jag kommer! I will turn it off now, because the house is going to sleep. Hello again, I'm back. This is Boxer that you saw on stream. Um, he's much quieter, so he's gonna stay on. Yeah, there we go. Left the bots downstairs because, yeah, why not? I might as well go through how I kind of mix these batteries, so I kind of gotta figure out which ones are discharged and not now. So let's see here. 411, 412, those two are together. This is going to be lower. 39 and 39, yes. So these two cells will be put on charge. Like so. And I'll turn them on again tomorrow. And yeah. Sorry for babbling, but MaMo's successfully been repaired. Wahoo! And I think I'll see you next time, actually. Where is... There it is. Okay. Goodbye. I pressed end. YouTube.